Okay, I'm doing the controversial parenting tag. I'm not sure exactly who started this, but I figured I'd join in. Forgive me if I don't look at the camera, it's kind of new to me. Oops, my bad. I'm looking at the list here. Pro-life versus pro-choice. Well, that one there, personally, I'm all for pro-choice. But for me, I wouldn't get an abortion. But I can't say I would never. It's just, I just don't see me getting one. I mean, things could change one day. Baby wearing. 100% for baby wearing. That doesn't mean I'm not also for strollers. I just ordered myself a Graco Fast Action jogging stroller. Got a little 17-month-old here. I do think I'm going to be more likely to use a stroller with the next baby, especially because I'm pretty sure she's going to be 2 or maybe even 3 when the next kid is born, and I can't see carrying 2 babies. So I don't have a problem with strollers. My only problem is when people leave their strollers in aisles and block aisles, for instance. But strollers can be fine. Circumcision, I don't even think that's a choice at all. I feel that it's the owner's penis. That's it. I don't have a problem with, I have a problem with routine infant circumcision. I don't have a problem with circumcision. That's, if some man decides he wants to go get it done, more power to him. I don't believe in making any changes to my children's bodies that involve cosmetics that are cosmetic. And now, of course, if there's a good medical reason to do it, then yes. But most times there isn't a good medical reason. It's a made-up medical reason, or a medical reason caused by bad information, like retracting the foreskin. Adoption. I don't see how that's controversial. I don't know who would be against adoption. I think that, would you rather would you rather a child grow up in a neglectful, abusive household, where they aren't wanted, or in a household that is loving and wants them?
Pumpkin?
Pumpkin? No, not yet.
Pumpkin?
Say hello. Baby piercing. I know it's not the same as circumcision. I don't think it is, but I follow the same rules. I didn't get her ears pierced because I feel like it's her body, and I don't like altering people's bodies without their permission. The only things that I do believe I should, as a parent, do is, for instance, life-saving or any medical procedure that will help keep them healthy, or get them healthier if need be. Breast milk versus formula. 100% breast milk. This one, I'm a lactation educator going for my lactation consultant certificate. That being said, I'm not anti-formula. I know a lot of people say that, but I really am not. I actually used formula with her in the beginning. I used a syringe to keep her from getting a bottle because I had some trouble with my milk supply, which I'll probably talk about in a different video because that's a long conversation. I do have some opinions on that. I think that, of course, if you want to formula feed, more power to you. I'm not going to judge you. I just think that people should at least know how breastfeeding works. For instance, if you're pregnant, it's a good idea to at least know how it works. So if you decide to change your mind, you know how to tell if your baby's getting enough milk, where you can find help if you need it, stuff like that. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I do think if you're on the fence, though, if you're considering it, you're just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's for me, maybe it's not. Again, I recommend just educating yourself. not just going to a class or reading one book or whatnot, but looking around, like really educating yourself and knowing, of course, with the good sources. I recommend staying away from mommy blogs that talk about all their horrible experiences, because that's not the normal that's not what's the normal experience for a lot of breastfeeding moms. It can be a culturally normal experience, but by knowing about biology and how breastfeeding works and how what's normal for a baby and what's not normal, it's easier to understand whether or not, for instance, you're making enough milk, or if you need or if your baby might have one issue or another, and where you can get help and whatnot. Let's see another. The other recommendation I have for that is if you're on the fence, just give it a try for 2 weeks. Of course, if before then you really, really can't stand it and you just, no way, I'm not going to do it. You know what? Then, that's all, the only person that you have to answer to is the person in the mirror. That being said, there's a good reason for the recommendation for 2 weeks, and that's because of what's called the prolactin receptor site theory. And that's the theory, which in science means has been tested over and over again, and hasn't been proven false. But the idea is, the thing is that prolactin is the hormone that makes milk, and in the breast there are alveoli. One second. In the breast there are alveoli. That's where the milk is made. There are cells in the alveoli called lactocytes, and on the walls of those lactocytes there are prolactin receptor sites. Now, pretty much every woman, unless she has a hormonal disorder or breast hypoplasia, sets up to breastfeed. In the whole colostrum stuff, I'm not going to try to get too technical with it. But the first few weeks of breastfeeding is all about, and that's when babies, especially in the first few days, but up to the first few weeks, babies breastfeed a lot. A lot of times moms will think, for instance, that their baby is breastfeeding too much because they're not making enough, and then they give a bottle, and there's a lot of stuff to that. But basically the whole idea is that, basically, stress? Yes, you are. Yeah. Here you go. No bite, please. You want to watch Daniel Tiger? Stress? The whole idea is that during those first few weeks, particularly the first few days postpartum, all that stimulation at the breast, whether that's baby or pump, and baby is always better, pretty much always better than a pump. Maybe Daddy will get some pumpkin pie later. Yeah, later, okay? Pumpkin, yeah. But basically, during that time, prolactin receptor sites are being primed, and that's what, the more hormones have to have a receptor site to bind to. So when bottles are given and mom's not pumping for those missed feeds, that's less prolactin receptor sites that are primed, and so that's less milk making capability for the mother. Now, of course, there are some women who are pretty much right out of the gate. They're like they're full of milk. They can give 8 bottles a day and never have a problem. They leak milk every second, and that's generally not how it. Okay, here you go. That's generally not how. That's generally not how things are. That's an iPod. It's generally not how things are for most women, though, and so a lot of times that's where a lot of the I didn't make enough milk comes from, and whether or not that's because, for whatever reason, the mom decided to give a bottle. You know, that's her choice. I do hope that women get the information to make a educated choice. But it's not. I don't feel like mothers are bad mothers because they use formula or not. After 2 weeks, another reason too is that after 2 weeks, if you decide that you're not for breastfeeding, or for yourself that is, it's much, if you decide, I don't want to do this, I want to do formula, that's fine. I mean, of course it's always fine, but if you do it for at least 2 weeks, you're more likely, if, say, you decide after you start formula that you actually do want to breastfeed, to be able to go back to breastfeeding with less issues than if you start out of the gate combo feeding. The other thing is, the more important thing is that I also believe that a lot of women are given a false dichotomy. It's either breast milk from the breast or formula from a bottle, and sometimes we throw in breast milk in a bottle, but we don't really talk, especially medical care providers, we don't talk about people's options like we should. We don't talk about exclusively pumping. We don't talk about cup feeding, syringe feeding, part-time breast and formula, part-time breast and breast milk in a bottle. We don't talk about donor milk. We don't talk about a lot of things that we don't give people all of their options, and I don't think that's right. Whether or not I agree with the ultimate choice of a mother, I think she should at least know her options and be able to make that choice for herself. Let's see. The next one is spanking. No spanking. That being said, I'll admit I've slipped a couple times, but not like real bad, more like a slap on the hand. And, then I realized it was a bad thing to do because it really didn't teach her anything. It was because I went beyond my abilities, and, I want to keep improving. Not saying that people that spank are bad people. It's just, I think that, I believe that with spanking, when you're getting to the point where you're spanking, you've gotten to a point where you've gone beyond your level of being able to handle the situation. And if you're spanking regularly, especially for trivial things like not picking up, if you're spanking, I shouldn't say that. If you're spanking regularly, I think that it's a good idea to seek professional family counseling. Co-sleeping. 100% for co-sleeping. I've watched a few of these videos, so I want to make a comment. Co-sleeping is sleeping in the same room as your baby. It doesn't necessarily mean sleeping in the same bed or on the same surface. So your kid's crib in your room, or kid's bassinet, or pack and play, or whatever, is co-sleeping. Some parents will even take the front off of their crib, or get one of those co-sleepers, and sidecar, for instance, what's called sidecar in the crib, they'll take the front end off the crib, and they will put it up next to the bed, so that the bed is bigger, it gives the baby their own space, but also the baby's in the same room, which actually helps things like breastfeeding a lot. Home versus public versus private versus charter schooling. Honestly, that's a conversation my husband and I have had, and that's going to be largely determined by what we can do, obviously, and by what school district we're in. Because there's been so many improvements in different options for schooling, I don't feel that I need to choose a place for us to live when he gets out of the military based on how good the school district is. That being said, I think this is missing one important one, which is public school online, which is kind of a hybrid homeschool public school, which I kind of like because I grew up wanting to homeschool my future children, but I started thinking about it, and I'm not very organized. I'm not good at creating lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. And so I like the idea of being there for her, but that she has a teacher. I also like the idea of being able to have her partially partially learning at home. I love the variety. I love being able to have her education tailored to her. But if circumstances don't allow for it, then public school all the way, and then supplementing at home when I can. Vaccinations, 100% for fully scheduled vaccinations. Medicating children. If you're talking about things like ADHD, things like that, I believe in ADHD. All of that stuff. I have no problem with people that give medications to their children. I do believe that when you're dealing with children, you need to look at everything and do everything you can, and that includes therapies, family counseling, because I do believe that a lot of ADHD symptoms are a lot of them are really and can be even exacerbated by family problems at home. Now, that's not saying that's always the case or whatnot, but I think it's important to discuss, and also therapies to help the kid learn how to utilize their talents. And of course, medications when appropriate. If you're talking about things like ibuprofen, Tylenol, stuff like that, I believe in minimal medication. If the kid's not showing symptoms and doesn't have a disease that requires medication, for instance, if my daughter had diabetes, of course I'd give her insulin if she required it. However, I don't give her ibuprofen for every little fever that she has, especially if she's running around playing and she's fine. Cloth versus disposable diapers. That's another thing. I'm all for both. I cloth diaper. I used disposables in the beginning. I think next time I plan on using cloth pretty much full time, even from the beginning. But my only caveat to that is, if you're leaving your kid in diapers for 12, 15, until the diaper is sagging and seeping and you're reusing them, which I've heard of people doing, you can't afford to you can't afford to dispose of diaper. I'm sorry. But the thing is that, especially if you look at the website Dirty Diaper Laundry, and they're here on YouTube, and also if you look at the Flats Challenge, it goes into more detail. But basically, there are options with cloth diapering. I live in a top floor apartment, and I can't stand going down the laundry to wash her diapers, and it's like $1.50 for a wash, $1.50 for a dry, and needing to do an extra rinse, and there's only one you choose how hot you want your water, and that's the only choice you have. So you got to do a whole new $1.50 cycle. And a lot of times with the drying, you have to dry twice. That's $6 a load. At this apartment complex, water is included in our rent. So I just hand wash. I have a crank style hand washer, or I use the sink, and it's not that big of a deal. That's not me trying to be mean. I just personally feel that if you're leaving your kids in dirty disposables, that you should at least consider cloth diapering and looking into it. And the Flats Challenge, which is done in May, is a good opportunity to just take a week and just look into it. And like I said before, there's a lot of options, and I'll do another video or you can look at Obson Lala, who explains that really well too. I actually use receiving blankets and covers or pockets for her, so I have actually not spent a lot of money on my cloth diapers. I've saved a lot, And the whole idea that you have to shell out like $25, $30 for each diaper, and you need like 30 diapers, and no. The last one is cry it out method. My opinion on the cry it out method is that it's wrong, but I also believe that cry it out is putting a kid in a separate room and closing the door. It doesn't mean not doing cry it out doesn't mean that I give my daughter whatever she wants, or that I never she never cries. Sometimes I need to let her cry, and that's, for instance, in the car when I'm going somewhere. She doesn't like being confined. She doesn't like being in her car seat, and I'm huge on extended rear facing, and I'm not about to turn her around, regardless of whether or not if she'd be happier, because it's a safety issue. And I know that for her, it's not facing forwards or backwards. It's just the simple fact that she doesn't want to be in her car seat, and I'm not about to give her that option. So I'm also just like the code speaking thing too. My husband and I are not doing cry it out actually works for us. It keeps our household calmer, and it's not that big of a deal for me to walk her around and do what I need to do. She's getting older now, so she's starting to be able to handle all that stuff. And finally, except for a few things that I've mentioned, you know what, whatever you choose to do, it's your kid. I choose to parent my way. I don't really think that you're a horrible parent. And thank you for watching.